In today's video, I'm going to talk about something that not a lot of people know about me. Well over 10 years ago, I set out on a weight loss journey and lost about 8 stone. I know not everyone uses stone as a measure, so in kg that's about 50 kilos, and in pounds it works out about 112 pounds. In terms of clothes size, I probably couldn't tell you accurately because at that time I opted mostly for like baggy tracksuits. But if I had to hazard a guess, in UK sizes it was probably about a size 18 or 20. In regards to how I felt at that time, I pretty much just felt very sluggish and uncomfortable. But the thing that stands out more in my memory is how unhappy I was, how insecure I felt. I didn't feel good about myself. From what I know now, I was on the borderline of being morbidly obese, mostly because I am very, very short. I'm only 5'2". I remember hearing that information for the first time from a GP, who I have to say didn't deliver it in the most delicate of manners. It's not personally the way that I would speak to somebody about that topic. It was kind of like, yeah, this and that, because obviously you're obese, but you know that. I was about 16 at the time, so no, I didn't know that. I knew I was overweight, but obese, no, I didn't really realise that. I was young, so my conceptions of that kind of thing were completely different. So at the time, that was quite hard to swallow. There were tears, probably quite a lot of tears. But one thing I would say, it did inspire a change. I am by no means advocating that level of bluntness. Personally, I wouldn't approach the subject with somebody in that way. The point is, I'm just sharing my genuine experience. So I'll get to the part which I'm sure most people are interested in, which is what did I do to lose weight? So first of all, I should start by saying that especially given what I know now, I know that there are better ways to go about it. But generally, before I started, my issues boiled down to a few main things. First being a lack of physical activity. I actually did enjoy sport growing up, and when I was young, we were always out playing, running, we weren't inside much. It was a different generation. We didn't spend a lot of time in front of the TV. We were outside a lot. So I did enjoy sports. I did enjoy physical activity. But gradually, as weight started to creep on, I went the opposite way. The more uncomfortable I felt, the less I wanted to take part, the less I wanted to do. It probably also didn't help that I was a very early developer, so generally compared to other girls my age, I was already broader in the hips, I was already sort of, developing basically, so that probably didn't help matters. But not only that, pre-secondary school, I was always very tall. I was always like the tallest in my year or the tallest out of my friends, but as I say, I was an early developer, so my growth kind of stunted at about secondary school. So that was about 11, 12, I sort of stopped growing height-wise, but I had already, as I say, developed in other ways. So yeah, this probably also contributed to my embarrassment at doing physical activity, doing sports and that kind of thing. So in terms of secondary school, I went to an all-girls secondary school, so how I felt was not about being attractive to the opposite sex. It wasn't about boys or anything like that. It was just embarrassment in terms of how I felt about myself. It never really was about what other people thought of me. It was about how I felt about myself. Luckily, I've always kind of been that way. It's always been about that rather than other people's opinions. As I say, when I started this journey, I was about 16. So I was in the process of transitioning from school to college. So the main thing that I started to do was I started to incorporate walking into my travel journey. I personally had quite a long journey to go to college. I was living on one side of London and I was going to the other side of London. So I would make walking a part of that journey. So walking to a bus stop that was a little bit further, I would have to walk from a bus stop to the train station to the college, that kind of thing. So generally I was just walking more, but I was incorporating it into what I already had to do. It wasn't like an extra thing. So this is what I started with rather than doing any formal types of exercise. So all in all, I was probably doing about 30 or 40 minutes of walking, albeit broken up. I was actually in college 5 days a week, so that was a big change. I'll be honest, I had probably lost about 5 stone maybe before I actually made any other changes to my physical activity levels. So I had gone down to about a size 14 before I actually had to change anything else. In hindsight, there's nothing that I would really change about that. I think that was a really good place to start. And it also, for me, confidence-wise, didn't look like anything out of the ordinary. I wasn't sort of on show in exercise clothes or anything like that. I was just in normal going to college clothes. That was something that was really important to me at that time. I didn't want to look like I was trying to lose weight. That might sound really strange, but I just didn't want anyone to to pick up on that. So I didn't want to take part in anything that was that would put that on show. Now, there is a huge misconception about people who are overweight or obese, or maybe people who have just put on weight, that they must be eating a lot, that they must be, eating all the time. I find that quite funny because I would actually say, in terms of volume, I probably eat much more now than I ever did then. My main problem is that I didn't eat often. I often skipped breakfast, I often skipped lunch, or I just had something kind of snacky during the day. And then once I got home, then I would be really hungry. So because of that, I would go for foods that were less nutritious and more calorific, but generally the volumes of food that I was consuming wasn't that much. So the first thing I started to do was incorporate some sort of breakfast every morning. At that time, I think it was Special K that I was going for, which I now know isn't the best option, but it was a start. To begin with, I didn't really change much else, apart from the fact that I would generally eat more regularly. So I would eat breakfast and then I would take some snacks with me to college, usually a cereal bar or some sort of fruit, which now I know obviously it would have been better if I would have taken something else for lunch. I would have taken even a sandwich or something like that. But I'm just being honest. At the end of the day, it was a journey and a learning curve. The point is, I had a more regular eating pattern, so I wasn't as attracted to certain foods in the evening. That more regular eating pattern was keeping my blood sugar levels and my metabolism a bit steadier than it was before. I think my mindset hasn't really changed from what it was there, in the sense that I do still think that it's better to address your habits gradually rather than trying to change everything in one go and trying to be perfect from the get-go. This, coupled with the walking, was all the changes that I made initially, really. And again, like I said, that sort of was the pattern that I had that helped me to lose about 4 or 5 stone. It was at this point that I plateaued and I stopped losing weight, really. The weight loss required a bit more effort than it had before. It sort of felt like prior to that it sort of like almost dropped off and it fell off quite quickly. So to kind of step it up, I started to incorporate some power walking on the weekends. Initially it was probably about a 30-minute walk on the Saturday and the Sunday, and I found that gradually I got fitter, so I was quicker, which meant that I was covering more ground in the 30-minute space. And then when I found that happened, I just made the route a little bit longer. So in the end, they were probably about 40-45 minutes long. It was also at this point that I became aware of calories and I started to track those. So these few things kick-started my weight loss again and took me from about a size 14 to a size 10. Along the way, I started to become a bit more interested in nutrition. I started to become a bit more interested in different kinds of exercise, like strength training, resistance training, mostly just using body weight. So eventually I ended up at a size 8 and I've kind of stayed around there for probably about 10 years or so. I know some people might not be happy about the fact that I'm talking about clothes sizes. The reason that is because one thing I will say is that throughout that whole process, I never stepped on a scale. The only way I knew the degree of the weight loss is from doctor's records before and after. So it was only really around the size, when I got to about a size 14, that I started even recognising clothes sizes, because that was really at the point where I started to venture into different clothes and change the way I dressed, that kind of thing. So prior to that, like I said earlier, I wasn't really aware of clothes sizes. But from then on, that's how I was kind of gauging how things were going, how much weight I was losing. It was telling in my clothes. I know that some people will say that talking about clothes sizes is going to be triggering for other people, but it does bring me on to my next point, hence why I've been mentioning it. So coming back to what I was saying at the start, I was very insecure, I was very unhappy, and I would go as far as to say self-hating. The process of losing weight didn't make that disappear. I may well have been losing weight, I might have been happy about that, but I still wasn't in a position where I was liking myself. So I was physically fitter and healthier for the changes that I'd made. I was getting feel-good feelings when I was physically active, but in terms of my relationship with myself, I still hadn't addressed that. I distinctly remember having a conversation with someone, and I was basically saying that once I went from a size 10 to a size 8, that would be it and I would be happy. I was sort of knocked off of that train of thought when they told me that I wouldn't be happy. To be fair, at first I really didn't grasp what they were saying to me, and I sort of said, of course I will be, that will be it and I'll be happy. I wouldn't want to lose any more weight after that. And then they kind of went a bit further in explaining what they meant. They said to me, you know what, when you were a size 12, you said that you would be happy at a size 10. You said that a size 10 was always your goal and you'd be happy there. Now, that's where you are and you're still wanting to go a bit further. You're still wanting to lose more weight. At what point do you say, right, that's it? They said, realistically, if that's how you're thinking now, it'll always be something. And to be fair, she was right. Once I got to a size 8, it was still kind of, oh, I just want to lose this bit here or this bit there, or, you know, it was just something that I wasn't happy with. Luckily for me, because I was quite interested in nutrition, I was quite interested in proper training, I never went to the extent of cutting back too far, because I had sort of learned from my research that that wasn't a good idea. But I was still focused on not putting on weight and looking better, and that standard just kept changing. Like I said, when I started that journey, I was at the tail end of 16, just turning 17, and it took me about a year and a half to lose that weight. So now I'm 18, on my way to 19, but I'm still not happy. And that sort of carried on until my 21st birthday, and I very much distinctly remember that, because I remember that day feeling quite down. I was feeling really, I wasn't good enough, and I still hadn't achieved this ideal that I had in my head. I was 21 and I still hadn't reached that ideal, and I was kind of, beating myself up about that I was 1 year older and I still hadn't reached that, whatever that goal was. I don't think I even knew what that goal was, to be honest. At that point, it wasn't just about weight. It was about, I didn't like my nose. I didn't like, that I had the stretch marks. I didn't like that I wasn't toned enough. I didn't like that, my hair. I was just picking at different things that I didn't like. It was at that point that it was just like a switch in my head, and a voice just said, what a waste. What a waste of time to sit there hating yourself and picking yourself apart. What a waste of a life that is. What really is that going to achieve? It's not going to change anything. It's not going to make anything any better. As corny as it sounds, it was a bit of an epiphany, really. And I literally made myself get up and made myself look in the mirror and choose one thing about myself that I liked. Didn't have to be appearance, but just pick one thing about myself that I actually did like. And I made a promise to myself that I was going to stop. I was going to stop picking myself apart. I was going to stop making myself miserable. That might sound a bit far-fetched, but personally for me, it worked. Of course, I had my moments, I had my ups and downs, but for the most part, it did really break the cycle. So the moral of that point of the story is that a weight loss journey is not complete. If you're just working on the physical and not working on your relationship with yourself and your mental well-being, then it's not the full package. So looking back on all of that, of course there are certain parts that could have been better. Of course it would be better if my relationship with food and my relationship with physical activity was a bit more like it is now. Looking at it in terms of your health, doing it for your health, eating better for your health, being physically active because it makes you feel better and there are health benefits rather than just the aesthetics of it. But then again, they don't call it a journey for no reason. It is a journey. You change as you go along, you grow. It's no different, over the years you change as a person, your mindset changes on certain things. This is no different. So to sum things up, it's about physical activity, being more physically active. And that doesn't necessarily mean engaging with formal types of exercise. It could just be about moving more in general. Being more regular with your eating patterns, making sure that you're eating regularly throughout the day rather than just consuming lots in one go. Looking at the balance of what you eat. What types of food are you eating? Are you eating nutritious foods? Are you eating enough of different food groups? or you eating lots of one food group, neglecting another. And portion sizes. Like I said, the volume of food that I was eating wasn't particularly high. It's just that I was eating higher volumes of certain types of food, which meant that there was more calories involved and not enough of other types of food. But also not to rush the process. Make gradual changes. Don't try and change everything at once and overwhelm yourself and make it a miserable process. Try to make small changes step by step, and you will see progress that way. And generally having a more positive outlook, and like I said, not neglecting your mental well-being. I hope you got something out of this video. Please stay tuned for more health and well-being content and hit that subscribe button.